That's true.
Okay, all right. Let's call the meeting to order at 6:03. And the next agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Correspondence, visitors, public comments. Do we have anybody online?
No, just Wendy.
Okay. And agenda review.
I don't think I have anything.
Next item is the approval of the minutes for September 26, 2023. Would anybody like to make a motion? Thank you, Renick. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Don. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstained. 402, right? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 402. All right, next agenda item is administrative reports, MVU's administrative report, and then the district administrative report. Does anybody have any questions after reviewing the reports or comments or?
We tried to include a few more pictures in
I
the report.
saw that.
It gives people a little bit more of a heads up as to.
I do have to say, I do love seeing the field studies on there. That's to me, it's a really positive thing that they can get out and do that.
Yeah, that's been going on for a number of years now, at least 8 years.
Yeah.
And the guy that they go with, the Vermont Fish and Wildlife guy they go with is an MVU grad. So
Oh, is he?
yeah,
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
makes it even
So it's
better.
some great
And
connections.
It looks like everything was successful with Renick being here for
The echo.
the echo.
Yeah, I was very glad Dan allowed us to come up and it seemed to have a good time.
175 students, over 175 students. And then we got the weight room to look forward to next Thursday.
Thursday, yep. I would ask that if you, I think most everyone is coming. If you are coming, I would say please arrive by no later than 9:15 that morning. We're expecting the governor and Jake Steinfeld somewhere between 9:15 and 9:30 with a start time of roughly 9:40 that morning.
So my question with that, with the governor being here, is there any, do we have to go through like any specific security or anything? Should we
I've heard
probably
anything.
be here by 9 just in case if he's coming at 9:15?
Yep. I know that the security detail will be here a little bit early. I do know where, they want to move the vehicle, his vehicle kind of near an entrance or an exit of where he's going to be later in the morning. But, we haven't heard any other details from the governor's office around any kind of security or anything along that line.
Excellent.
It's not in your report, but what's the squad, success squad, or whatever the squad is when you walk through the cafeteria, is an action squad.
The action squad, that was started by Alyssa Urban last year. The student action squad met typically on Wednesday mornings, and they would take some kind of initiative and look at researching it and trying to make MVU a better place. And sometimes they were like painting murals in bathrooms and inspirational messages. But that was the Student Action Squad.
Now, is it continuing into this year?
It has not continued into this year. Yep.
So she did meet sometimes during T-Bird time last year. So if there were kids that were interested, then she did call them during T-Bird
I
time.
thought it was a
So
neat idea.
Yeah.
I lost track
So
of
it
I
could.
saw it again tonight, and I thought,
Yep.
oh, I wonder what's happening.
it could if there's student interest.
Yep.
Oh, I did have one facility, if we're done.
I'm done.
So I had a older gentleman, I can say older because it was my father.
Watch that stuff. Joyce reminds me of that all the time.
He was concerned with I think it's the stop sign coming out this way, it's like totally faded.
I just talked to Jason about that a little over a week ago, and he's already got the
So
signs
you're already on it,
Yep.
okay.
Yep, there's a couple of them that are like that. that are
Yeah,
faded,
Yeah.
he
and they're
thought, he
replacing.
thought it was
Yep,
a little dangerous.
yes, yep, I concur. Yep.
I just, overall, it's really neat. This is my first board experience, I think, especially this last year and a half, where seeing a lot of projects come to fruition, like, the locker room redone, a lot of stuff we're doing in-house, and especially up here. It's kind of neat to see, so.
The tough part when you do like air handlers is you don't see them. You know what I mean?
But now there's physical
Yes,
stuff we're
yes,
seeing.
right.
It's kind of neat to see.
You can see that stonework happening.
Any other questions or comments for the other administrative reports?
I just have one question for Wendy. So I see the speech pathologist position is unfilled and implementing the teletherapy.
Right.
And I just kind of wanted to ask how that's going, just because I have kids and teletherapy, it mixed results sometimes at home. So how's that going on your end?
I'm afraid the audio is not really clear. I've heard my name and I heard a question. I think it's about Illuma. Are you asking how that's going?
Yes.
Yeah, I was asking how is the teletherapy going, and because I know we still haven't hired to the speech pathologist position, so I just was asking how that was.
Well, so we have put it in place. We have students, a few community pre-K students. Now with younger students, teletherapy really depends on the adult on the other side helping them to access. And so that, my understanding is that the sessions are happening and that they're going okay. In the schools, we are using it, trying to focus that resource on older students whose speech needs make the most sense for that type of therapy. There are some students that are accessing that at MVU, at the high school and the middle school. We have students in Swanton accessing it. It's early in the year to really assess how students are progressing toward their goals. And as we come on into fall and have progress report time, we'll have a better idea of how it's going. But anecdotally, the speech pathologists who are working with Illuma here at the district report that the therapists that are provided are doing a great job. So we'll have a little more information as we get on into the fall with progress report time towards student goals.
And why are they focused on the older students versus the younger students for in-person?
I think you asked why are they focused on older students versus younger students?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, we want to focus our in-person speech pathologists as much as possible on younger students who might have difficulty accessing a teletherapy type service. What we found during COVID is some of the younger students may need some more support from an adult on the other side. So we do have helpers set up for students at Swanton School who are younger, not middle-aged or high school age yet, to make sure that they're able to get into their session and participate in their therapy. And if there's any issues that arise during the session, there's an adult present to help them. Older students can access it oftentimes a little more independently. We do make sure that there is an adult nearby to help. But we really want to focus our in-person speech pathologists that we have on working one-on-one with students or in small groups of students in person in the district.
Thanks, Wendy.
You're welcome. I look forward to giving you an update once we have a little more information about how the service is working. But as far as the reports coming in, the sessions are happening and the providers are working well with our providers. So we're pleased so far.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I'm excited for next month. When was it? November 1st for the manufacturing.
Yes, it is. November 1st. It's, the manufacturing month is October, but they couldn't make it happen in October. So
They call it Maker Day.
Yeah.
We've been working with the Franklin Grand Isle Industrial Development Corporation, and they've got 5 different groups coming up. They'll be in Commons on that day. They'll coming up about 1:30 to set up, and like the Beta Technologies, the Airstream is going to be here, the flight simulator, and then students from around Franklin County will be here. We're expecting somewhere between 100 to 150 students. Here at MVU, there'll be a slight presentation, and then from there they go out to various manufacturing places within the county, and then they come back here by 6 o'clock, and there's a drawing for a mountain bike, and students are dismissed from there.
Are we able to come and poke around if they want?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
it's a great opportunity, and I love the fact that they wanted MVU to host because we're much more central, and kids from all over and their parents will be able to get on buses and go to area advanced manufacturing, which will be great.
What time does that start, Dan?
Some of the students will be arriving right around 2:45,
yeah.
3 o'clock. Yep, so it's right after our dismissal. So we'd ask them to kind of just let us get our buses out first, and then all their buses can come on in. So right around 2:45, 3 o'clock.
Seeing no other questions or comments, move on to our next agenda item, which is the presentation and discussion. And we have with us Aaron, is it Garcia? Garso, from the MVU Music Department.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Would you like me to stand?
We're sick.
Do you want to sit? There's a spot.
Yeah, you wanna sit here?
Where Gavin is.
Be nice and comfy. Well, very happy to be here. Mr. Palmer probably knows full well that when I get up on stage, I have no problems with speaking publicly. It sometimes makes our concerts go a little long. My colleague, not so much, but also she is right now with 2 little kids, and I'm an empty nester for the first time, so I have all the time in the world. I was very thrilled to come out here and talk about my program and my students. I have, for those of you who don't know me, Aaron Garso. I have been here since the 2007-2008 school year. I came from Sheldon School, and when Mr. O retired from here, Jack McCarthy called me up and asked if I would like to apply to here. And I will say that that was a very tough decision, as I really liked being at Sheldon. Since I have come here, I mean, how long ago was that? 15, 16 years ago. It still feels like it was only yesterday, and I absolutely loved it the whole time, mostly because I get to work with kids grades 7 through 12, which is something I was really interested in doing. There's a lot of high school positions that are just 9 through 12, but being able to get them so young, I say this at just about every concert, I get to see them when they get their braces on, and the braces off, when they get their learning permits and then their licenses, and then they talk to me about where they want to go to school. And at the end of 6 years, it's usually a little painful, and they go off on their own. In fact, this past year, my own son graduated from the program. which is why I'm an empty nester. Although he and another former student are actually joining the 40th Army Band here in Vermont. So my son just went through basic training. He's right now at the Army School of Music. The other student will be joining him very shortly. They'll be continuing with music. And it's really cool. I mean, this is just a great corner of the state. My family comes from St. Albans back a long time ago. I moved away, I came back. Seems right at home. We have about five sanctioned performing groups. Those are groups that happen during the school day. I have a 7th and 8th grade band of about 40 right now, a middle school string group, concert bands about grades 9 through 10, wind ensemble that's 11 through 12, 10 through 12. Ms. Turner has the concert choir and the master singers. After school, I think there's actually maybe more. After school, I have a jazz band. Students, there's a lot asked of kids. They do a lot of sports. They all work. There's a lot of activities all the time. Asking them to sign up for more than one music class doesn't always work. It does sometimes. So our jazz band tends to happen after school and during T-bird times. I was very happy when T-bird time got implemented because it meant I had another opportunity to have those kids during the day. Jazz band is after school on Tuesdays. We have a student-led pep band that is going to be happening on Wednesdays. This year the rock band didn't go through, a class that I had last year, because it was full mostly of seniors, and 6 or 7 of those graduated, leaving me a small handful of underclassmen. But then when I started talking it up, it was a little too late. Classes had already gone through. We did have enough, but it was too late. It wasn't in the schedule. So you better bet I've got about 10 kids who are ready to sign up next year to get a rock band class. But that group is meeting after school on Fridays. And so if you come down to the music room, there's just always music happening there all the time. We like to have the kids be sort of autonomous with this. So the pep band is a student-led group. We always have one senior who sort of steps up and takes control. What I do, because again, I like it to be a student-led thing. It's sort of a social thing for them. They get to make their own decisions and sort of make it or break it on their own. But I will usually find an instrument that's not being covered, and I'll just sort of sneak in through the back and I'll play a little bit. Or, as what happened last year, my son would call me up at a game and say, "Dad, we need a bass." And so I would drive up and I'd grab a bass and I'd just sit in the back and offer some suggestions, as it were. But my main goal is to make them be able to lead and run themselves so that they don't need me after they leave the school. Aside from the big performing groups that we have, there are also guitar classes, which this year are, I think we have 5 of them happening. I offer them in the middle school as sort of an introduction to playing the guitar. And what I find is that a lot of the students who take it when they're in 7th grade or 8th grade, I usually find them again in 9th grade, and they'll come in and they'll learn guitar. And it acts as kind of a review for them, but I also get to use them as helpers in the class for whenever there's someone who's struggling a little bit more. My co-teacher has been teaching piano classes. There's a whole computer lab built in the back of it used to be a storage room, and then we realized we just don't need that much space, and we don't need that much stuff. You know, we tend to accumulate a lot of stuff as the years go on. So we got rid of some stuff, added some computers and some keyboards in the back. So there are piano classes that go on. There are music technology classes that go on back there. So kids learn how to manipulate computer programs and keyboards and samples, and they work on things like soundtracks and making commercials. And you know, we're just trying to cover as many of the bases as we can so that kids have a lot more choices when they leave here. How long was that? But I love any questions if anyone has anything else that maybe I didn't cover. That was my mental list.
What's the schedule of your performances coming up?
Well, we have a performance in 16 days. And I usually try to be really good about sending out invites, and then as time goes on, I'm making the programs, I'm like, oh no, I forgot to invite so-and-so. So yes, we have them quarterly. We have, so our October concert is coming up. The 25th is the choral concert. So Danielle will have her middle school all the way up to high school, and then mine is the next day. And that, again, is 7th grade through 12th grade. And I like that concert a lot because that gives my 7th and 8th graders an opportunity to see what they will sound like when they become the older group. It's actually the only concert we have that is 7 through 12. Our winter concert will be, I try to push the winter concert as close to the edge of break as I can because I always invite my former students back and we have an alumni concert. And I find that if it's too early in December, then I've got kids who are doing exams or otherwise busy. But if I can push it, a lot of them will be back. And I think last year on the stage we had 111 people all doing sleigh ride at the end. It's become a tradition. I think since 2015 I had a student who said, Mr. G, I'm going to come back every year, I'm going to play this song. And I thought, that's a great idea. And so I actually started inviting back, I think the person who goes back the farthest is probably Marshall Plouffe, class is 71, and he comes back, 72, thank you. He comes back every year and plays the percussion parts for us. And it's been great. So I've had students of Ike Bedell and students of Mr. O and students of some other teachers who have been here throughout the year, but you know, they're all MVU students.
But you also get 3 generations of Plouffe on.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Marshall, Curtis, Caleb, and or Annie, you know, one of them had just about all of them, which, you know, again, is a testament to this community. In March, given the work we were doing with standards and everything, we decided to have one concert that was entirely student planned, executed, and run, and we call it our cabaret concert. So the students select their own music based on some criteria that we give them. They form their own groups. And then it's a whole evening of them announcing and performing with Miss Turner and I dressed in black and just helping them move stuff onto the stage and getting off the stage. And it's worked out really well. Kids are really nervous, especially this post-COVID time. I've noticed that there's a lot more self-consciousness and anxiety than I've ever seen before, and yet I was still really surprised at how much they really grasped onto that last year. And of course, in the spring is when everything goes pretty cuckoo here. We've got all the parades, parade in St. Albans for Maple Fest, the 3 parades for Memorial Day. Our musical takes place at that time. We've got our concerts. We did a lot of fundraising last year with our newly formed Friends of Music group that sent us down to New York to perform at Queensbury High School for the Trills and Thrills Festival, at which the bands received higher ratings than we had in the past. It's a lot of fun. It's always something for the kids to look forward to. At the end, final concerts in June. Yeah, there's a lot of music happening here all the time.
I didn't realize it was so expensive of a program. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. We do as much as we can, you know, idle hands.
Thinking back over the years you've been here, it seems to me that during those times, the high school has added more sports programs, more offerings. Has that had an impact as far as the number of students?
There's a bunch of stuff that have we've had some changes in scheduling. We've had, more sports offerings for sure. And so I think the first year I was here, I can remember the group of seniors I had was maybe 20. And also, just changes all around. And we definitely find that everyone is fighting more for students' time. There's just so much being heaped upon them. And I honestly didn't realize that myself until I had my own high school kids. And I thought about all the number of times that I was just on kids, practice at home, and then I realized they're lucky if they can have dinner at a normal hour and get their homework done. So part of that was getting the middle school kids every day. If I can get them in their seats every day, then I don't have to be on them about practicing every day when they're at home. But also still trying to keep it light. So, the little kids, they don't have they have a lot going on, but not quite as much. Well, we find that if we can get them in the room and get them playing and get them enjoying it and find that they can be successful at it, we have a better chance of retaining them throughout the years. And again, I am the luckiest teacher in the school in that I get to see them from 7th grade to 9th grade, and we sort of become our own unit. Kids find their way in, even if they're not in the band, they do a guitar class or such. I've had a couple of kids actually join the band after guitar. They're like, I really like this, how can I keep it going? I'm like, I'll teach you music. You can play bass, you can play keyboards, and so, we try to grab kids in from non-traditional ways of going. It is a struggle, and it is something we always think about. Every band teacher in the state thinks about that. Yeah, people, say, oh, kids these days, they don't do this, they don't do that. And I always say, kids these days are some of the hardest working people that there are right now.
I went to school and Mr. Rowe was here, who was our class advisor. So I think it's great to have you here. I'm sure you sometimes get discouraged by the comparisons, and I wouldn't compare. But
Not as often,
but
16 years later.
But it's been great to have you here. It's been I'm not overly musically inclined. I tried with my girls, and they did it as much as we could get them to do. But just you don't have to look far to see where MVU Musical has reached. There's people that were Mr. O that are now Grammy, nominated.
Playing with Jimmy Vaughn.
Playing with Jimmy Vaughn.
Yeah.
They're playing in Philadelphia. They're band instructors, maybe at neighboring schools, or choral instructors.
Yeah.
And I suspect we're going to see the same with you. We're already seeing, I'm sure I don't even know, but I bet there's students still.
There are a bunch of kids who tell me they're going to take my place.
Well, not take your place,
They're counting down.
Doing the same thing that.
Mr. G, when are you going to retire? Like, come on, give me, a little bit of time.
I mean, you already got 2 in the Army National Band,
yeah.
And I'm sure there's ones I don't know that you've had that are still playing away and contributing. So I think that'll be your mark, and I'm sure it's already started.
One thing I tell kids is, sports is great. I played baseball when I was in high school. I don't do so much of it now. I know more people who play in community bands and jazz groups and other things than have found a similar thing in sports. There are community baseball groups and whatever, but I know a lot who keep playing music. So it's like there's no reason to do one or the other. Fine to do both, and you don't tend to get as hurt playing in the band. Not gonna.
So I think you're doing great. Just
Thank you
keep it
very
up. I think you're great for MVU, and I appreciate all you've done for the school.
I don't know if you remember my daughter, Michaela Magnet. She went through
Absolutely.
middle school.
Flute player?
Yeah.
Yep.
And she the disappointment there is that she really loved it, and she really enjoyed you, and she wanted to continue in high school, but when you're going the college path.
Yep. It's not always easy to do.
Right, and
Tech
music wasn't her
sometimes.
focus, but she really wanted to keep doing it, and
Yeah.
I was really disappointed that she wasn't able to continue.
It is tricky. One other thing that, really sometimes has an impact is early college. You lose these kids right as they become a senior. But I, for the last 5 years, have had kids that will come back and still play with the band. And some of those kids have enough time where they actually come back and play with both bands and decide to play a different instrument in the younger groups so that they can learn at the same time. Doesn't always work. There are kids who have high expectations of being able to do that, but then they find the pressures of college doesn't always work. But right now I've got three young ladies who come in and play with us every A-day for the bands. But I also have about 3 others who said they wanted to, and it just didn't work out. So sometimes it's tech, sometimes it's early college, or sometimes, yeah, it's just that extra AP class that makes it so that it's really tough to play. Michaela, that was a long time ago. What was that, 10, 12?
Michaela graduated in 2016,
Yeah, okay.
and Ben graduated in
21.
3 years ago.
2
But and he wasn't in band, but he was in the pep band.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Played the guitar.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was really disappointed when you said that you weren't a fan of the Polar Express one.
The music is great. It's just the movie could have been 30 minutes. It was a long time chasing that ticket around.
Any other questions or comments?
So if you could have one thing that you don't have now, other than time, what would it be?
For the program,
Well, personally,
I would roll back the clock and have COVID not happen.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Could I do that? So we have a lot of meetings and festivals where I get to speak to my other colleagues, and I have to say that for the last 2 years, I was in a much better place than the rest of my colleagues because I think we were one of the few places that was still performing because the school got together buses so that we could take the band up to the airport and perform under the pavilion up there. And we were still making music up until November. And so what we got from that was some kids who were still, playing excellently. Since then, we've now hit that COVID bubble. Right now, my juniors and seniors are the kids who were in the 8th grade, 7th grade, and their parents sent their instruments back home because there was just nothing that could happen for them. The middle school kids right now, some of them had to start a year late, some of them started 2 years late, and so we're finding that we do have this bubble. We're working a little extra hard to get them up. The numbers are lower for sure because of all those kids who gave back their instruments and found stuff that they can do without. They found stuff that they could do that wasn't, that we weren't allowed to sit next to each other. We weren't allowed to blow through instruments or anything like that, except for that group that we were able to take up to the airport. I don't know any other school anywhere who had anything like that. It was the amount of effort and time that went into that was truly, it was really cool. It was great. We've got a great administrative team here.
I'm really glad to hear that because I think that it's so important because you're hitting a passion with a lot of kids that and like you stated before, it's different than having a student for a year.
Right.
And then you're seeing them all the way up, so you're playing a bigger role in their lives, and I just think it's great that they have that opportunity, and like Don's saying, we want to make sure that we're here to support the program and make sure things are going well.
Yeah, I would not trade places with anyone else in the state right now. Yeah.
We don't want you to.
Okay. That's fine.
And we probably we're one of the only 2 or 3 schools that has a pep band, I would guess. And we never had it when I was here, so I think that's all you. And it's such a great atmosphere at the games. I know there's a lot of new people in Swanton, and probably a lot of new people in Swanton that have never been attached to MVU, and they might be their kids might be older. People have moved here from other states. I mean, but if you want to connect with your community, come up to the MVU concerts to start. I mean, it's great.
We like to keep it going.
Yeah,
As much as we
and
can.
the basketball games, you know, scores aren't always the best, but the atmosphere is great.
Yeah.
You can't be, I mean, I think there's a private school in Burlington area that has a pep band, but I think, and then there's us, and I know a lot of other schools wish they could have one.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I don't think I even knew that. It was just, you know, my daughter goes to Clarkson over in Potsdam, and they have a pep band, and they have blast, and so I'm always coming back. It's like, guys, I was just at a game. This is what they're doing. Let's give this a shot. When they got moved up into the stands, they're like, oh, we don't want to be down the floor. It's like, are you kidding? You want to be up there with the rest of the fans. They should be right behind you, shouting into your ear, and you're shouting at everyone else.
You don't even see it in Barrie, I don't think, or at, for the D1s at UVM. I don't think Rice is the only school I know that has a pep band. I don't know of any others.
No one's brought them with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
for coming.
Appreciate
Again,
your time.
enjoy the opportunity to speak about the kids. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That December concert.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It sounds amazing.
It is wonderful.
The December concert.
Aaron does an absolutely fantastic job. And you talk about a cult following. I mean, so many kids love the program, and they're always going to play music. And he will do anything he can to make sure that if a kid wants to play any instrument, he'll do what he can to bend over backwards to make it happen. And he's always developing programs to meet kids where they're at. And whether it's strings or guitar or rock bands, pep bands, taking kids down to the Jazz Fest every year, playing on that in Church Street. And he does a fantastic job. So,
Kids really respond to it.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Dan, a piece of trivia. Aaron and I worked together in Sheldon 20 years ago.
That's right.
And when he did leave to come to MVU, people were so sad. But he's a phenomenal teacher and just builds such fantastic rapport with the kids.
Seems very enthusiastic and passionate
Yeah.
about his job. Right. Next, we have our continuous improvement update from Kosha.
Okay, I am going to join the meeting because I haven't done that.
So Julie's going to help with projecting some of the slides. And I just wanted to preface this by saying, I know all of you wanted to read the continuous improvement plan ahead of this meeting. So I did send it out ahead of time, but I have made some changes today because and I'll explain reasons for it. But you might see a little bit of change, and I've highlighted it to show you what changed. This year, we are not really required by the Agency of Education to submit a continuous improvement plan. They now require it every 2 years, but I like to do it for the district so that people know what the goals are and how we've changed from what we did last year. So usually create a district continuous improvement plan, and then off of that, each school kind of tweaks it for their own school. So the first goal we have is our safe and healthy schools. And you can see in this, we changed a little bit by saying we really wanted to focus on students' sense of safety and belonging. And since last year, we adopted a universal SEL screener, which measures school climate as well as it measures other aspects of social emotional learning. So we are going to use the data from that to really see if there is a change in student sense of safety and belonging from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. In addition to that, we worked with our consultant Corey Smith last year to create an SEL walkthrough form, which is also based on school climate and classroom climate. So she's going to come in December and train administrators and SEL team members to use that walkthrough form And so we are going to use that as an additional measure of a sense of safety and belonging. And so that is our goal for this year, which is different from last year. We had said we wanted 100% of our staff trained in how to integrate SEL into the content areas. So this year we are focusing on student sense of safety and belonging. And this is the academic achievement goal, which is our second goal. And the reason why we made changes in it today is because the leadership team, consisting of all our literacy and math coaches and myself, we had changed the benchmark, the default screening benchmark, which is usually 40th percentile. So students who are at the 40th percentile and above are considered proficient. But over the last 2 years, because of the kind of greater lags in academic achievement we saw as a result of the pandemic, they decided to up the ante and make the default benchmark 50th percentile. So that they were also keeping a watch on those students who were between the 40th and 50th percentile and making sure that those kids stayed on track to meet their end of grade expectations. This year we decided in the springtime to move it back to the default of 40th percentile for several reasons. One is that in the state of Vermont, we are seeing more and more districts adopting STAR as their screening. And the Renaissance, which is a company that makes the assessment, they're also now coming out with Vermont data. So we wanted to be on track with other districts around us who are all using the default benchmark of 40th percentile. And the other thing is that the state came out with a new assessment, as you all know, the VT-CAP, which is also based on the national RTI norm of the 40th percentile. So that's why we had to make a little change in this goal, because we're shifting from our benchmark of 50th percentile, which we used in the last 2 years, to back to the 40th percentile. And last week when I met with the Student Success Committee, we did look at that data, and they asked me to give them last year's data as the 40th percentile so we could compare apples to apples. And basically when we looked at that data from last fall to this fall, because we just finished our assessments for the elementary schools, it was pretty much exactly the same. There was no significant difference.
Earlier you said you wanted to make sure and capture those between the 40th and 50th percentile. How are you doing that if you're using 40 as the goal?
So we still have those students that we can look at how they're doing, because we do the assessment 3 times a year. So the students who are between the 40th and 50th no longer get put on watch, as they call, but the coaches, the teachers are constantly looking at that data, and if they see any changes in the students' performance, or they're supplementing it with classroom exit tickets and other assessments, they're always keeping a watch on it. But based on what the research says is most kids who are at the 40th percentile and above are not at risk. So we don't want to over-identify kids as being at risk if they are not, but any changes in performance are still monitored by the classroom teachers as well as interventionists and coaches to make sure that students don't show any drop in their performance. So this is just as, sorry?
What do you mean by at risk?
At risk
So
for
they-
not performing at meeting grade level standards at the end of the year.
So say a child, we give the screening, the STAR screening assessment at the beginning of the year, and say they score at the 30th percentile. So that, what the data is showing us is based on national norms. This child is at risk for not meeting the state expectations at the end of the year. And so it's like a warning for us, warning for teachers to say, hey, you need to dig deeper and see why this child is not performing or why that child is at risk. So as a second step, usually a specialist or the classroom teacher sometimes will give more diagnostic tests to see, okay, why is the student not reading at proficiently, or why is the student not performing math at where they should be at this time of the year. So those diagnostic tests will then give more information about what is happening with the student. At that time, they might identify some skills that may be missing from prior years, and then they put into place like an intervention plan where the math interventionist or the reading interventionist will specifically work on those missing skills from prior years. And sometimes, as we've seen over the past 2 years, there are other risk factors. For example, a student may not perform well on a screening assessment because their attendance is not regular, right? Or for example, they are having some kind of behavior issues and they get removed from the classroom, or they are having some kind of trauma going on in the home, or there are so many other factors that impact. But when they don't meet the benchmark at the screening level, that is like a red flag for us to see we need to dig deeper and find out what's going on with the student.
You ready to move?
All right. So what I showed in yellow is what you saw on the continuous improvement plan that I sent, and that was based on the 50th percentile benchmark that we used last year. When we looked at that same data using the 40th percentile, I changed the goal, and you can see what it says there. It's by spring of 2024, we will increase the percentage of students reading proficiently from 54% to 60%, and then the percentage of students doing math proficiently from 63 to 70%. So because we are using now that national norm, we are going to set the bar a little higher so that more students are meeting that benchmark. The other thing that happened, as you know, is the VT cap came in as our new state assessment. We still don't know what the correlation between STAR and the new state assessment is going to be. So I did speak with the Renaissance folks who created this assessment, and they said that if there are 3 or 4 districts in Vermont who are willing to let them use the student data, they can do that correlational study for us. So I've been talking to a few other curriculum directors, and we probably will be able to get some information, because right before the state assessment, if you do your second round of STAR, you can kind of use it as a predictor of how students will do on the state assessment. But since we don't have that correlation as yet, we won't know till that study is done. But that is in the works for sure, because more and more people, as I said, have started using STAR in the state. And this year, the state finally did announce the dates for the state assessment, and they've really moved it up very, very much. So it used to be like end of April, May, now it's gonna start in March. And so there are lots of concerns about that because it's 55 days before the end of the school year. So
It's not really end of year data.
yeah, it's actually going to be within 6 weeks of our winter assessment. So we are not sure how all this is gonna impact student learning as yet, because all these things are just coming out from the state. But that's why when I did talk to the Student Success Committee last week, we were kind of, yes, we need to stick to STAR because that's gonna be consistent over time. Whereas whenever the state contracts with a company, they sign a contract for 5 years and then we don't know what's gonna happen after that. So this will be something that will stay consistent for us. All right. And then this is our attendance and our engagement truancy goal. And I just spoke to Celine today to tell her, hey, I'm gonna be sharing the goal with our board today. So we put there by spring 2024, we will increase attendance of students who have been identified as being at low, moderate, or high risk for becoming chronically truant. And that data has been collected by her last year, so she has lists of students who've already been identified as being at risk, and those are the students who will be really closely monitored over time. Certain strategies have been put in place and supports have been put in place. So our goal is by the end of the year, those supports that are being provided to the students will help to increase their attendance and move them out of the risk category. And then finally, as part of our school continuous improvement plan, the state has us identify what we're going to do to close the equity gap. And these equity gaps are based on the data that was just released by the state. It's based on our 21-22 SBAC data. So it's a little old, but the data before that was 2019, so I guess this is more recent. And all our schools have been identified as having gaps between historically marginalized and historically privileged students. The category of historically marginalized includes students on free and reduced lunch, special ed students, English language learners, homeless, marginalized, all those categories which traditionally we know are at risk. And
Is it worth commenting how many other schools in the state were identified as in need of equity supports?
go ahead, Julie.
All of them. So it's, when Kosha says, all our schools were identified as being in need of equity supports, I don't believe there's certainly not a school district, and there may not actually be a school in Vermont that wasn't identified. Just thought that was worth pointing out.
And the two subgroups that we have to really look at are the free and reduced category, and then our students with special needs. Those are the ones where we are still seeing equity gaps, and so we are always trying to think about what we can do to help support those students and those families.
Well, what do you mean exactly by equity gaps?
So when you take, say for example, you take all your third graders, right, who took the assessment, and you look at the students who were on free and reduced lunch and those who were not on free and reduced lunch, and you compare the two, there is an achievement gap there. And the same when you look at, kids who are on special ed and who are not on special ed. And one of the things I just recently heard one of our consultants say is most of our students who are in special needs, they've never made 1 year's progress in 1 year, so why are we expecting them to make more than 1 year's progress in 1 year, right? So that's why we are really focusing on the early years and intervening early so that those gaps don't get wide.
Do you want me to move ahead, Kosha?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So basically for each of our schools, we've identified what might be some of the strategies they want to do. And I just made those changes today for based on our new proficiency benchmark. And so I'll be going through it with each of the school continuous improvement plan teams and then making sure that those goals are good for them. So for example, I'm meeting with the Swanton leadership team tomorrow, and I'll set up meetings with each of the different schools. And then finally, I just wanted to share with you, similar to last year, we continuously monitor how things are going. We have a district level continuous improvement team, which is going to meet 3 times a year this year. And we usually schedule it after the first assessment window is open. And this year, our first meeting is on November 1st. So we have representation from each of our schools, and people will come and share based on their continuous improvement plan, and the data they collected, what trends they're seeing at the beginning of the year, and what might be some strategies that they're going to focus on. And then each school continues to measure effectiveness of practice during their PLC meetings, during their data team meetings. And this Friday, we have at the elementary level, we have our data day. So half a day is spent by each of the schools, each team, grade level team, looking at their beginning of year data. And then they come together as a school and share and come up with school trends and what they want to work on. We changed our local assessment plan for this year because based on our coaches at MVU, they really wanted to wait and not do their assessment at the beginning of the year. They wanted to wait till October when kids had settled down, they had some instruction, and then they wanted to see how they're doing. So MVU students just started their STAR assessments this week. They will finish by the end of October, and then they have their data day on November 2nd. So that's when they will get an opportunity to dig deeper into their data. And then, as usual, I will be reporting to the board whenever we finish a round of assessments and we gather our data and analyze it, how the schools are doing. Julie, if you don't mind clicking on the data day template.
Oh, sorry.
And I just wanted to show the board what people are working on. So this is the template we created for this Friday's data day. And you can see that teachers will be looking at, starting with attendance, like which kids have missed 1 to 2 days of school so far, 3 to 6 days, and severely chronic. And then they will be able to say how many kids were at risk for attendance, how many are in the chronic, and how many are in the severely chronic. So they'll be starting to analyze that data this Friday. So they look at attendance, then they're going to look at the CEL-Web, which is our social emotional learning screener. And these are the categories under which they will be looking at information and identifying any students who may have some skills that need further support. And then finally, they are going to be looking at, and they'll also look at behavior referrals. So any students who had behavior referrals and have some lagging skills in SEL, how we can teach kids those skills are missing. And then they look at their academic data. So we kind of send out this template and each team sits and does the analysis, and then the school does a school-wide analysis.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really helpful.
So this year, like I said, we don't need to be submitting this to the Agency of Ed, but for us as a district, just to have, like, here's our North Star, this is what we are focusing on, and then for each school to have a focus for what they are going to be working on. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have a question. With more and more students attending our tech center, it seems that that's been increasing. I just became aware, my daughter said last week she attends, and she said they had some standardized tests last week.
At MVU?
No, at the tech center.
I'm not sure what.
Yeah,
Do you know?
she didn't know either, and I don't know if, she said she had some, she said that, I think, she said she thought BFA was doing it, but she said the tech kids, including yourself, had to do it. And I think one was math and one was English.
Okay, so we could find out from them. if
I can
they
talk to
were-
Leanne.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious how that would all fit in, or if it does, or where those results are going. Like, is that going into like Maple Run, or is it a separate tech center assessment?
Okay.
Like, do tech centers do assessments on their learners? I think I have it right, I'll double check with her, but I think last week she had,
We can find out.
Oh, we'll find out.
sounded like standardized testing, I said, because it wasn't anything she had to prepare for or study.
I don't know if they use STAR. Do they
Yeah.
use STAR? Okay. Well,
It
she
could
would have
be.
recognized if it was STAR.
Probably,
Probably.
but probably was a little lax in my parenting.
Well, she might have,
But
or, you know, if she's taken it before, so she likely would have said, they made us
sometimes
take that
it's-
dumb STAR test
Sometimes
again.
it get hard to get her to say hello to me. Junior, so I tiptoe.
Yeah.
So that's it for me.
Okay. No, we can certainly find out if it was the same or something.
On one of your screens, you talked about the Agency of Education's biannual report.
Yeah, so they call it biennial, which means every 2 years we
Right.
have to submit a continuous improvement plan to them.
How long has that been in place?
Last year. So they used to expect one every year, but then last year they changed it and they made it every 2 years.
And that's probably the reason I asked the question, because knowing the state of affairs at the Agency of Education, I wonder how realistic that is. And will it really be helpful, or is it one more demand on school districts to give them data that we never hear from again? I don't know. Thank you.
You're right.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, appreciate it. So next we have on the agenda the business office, and first up is the warrants.
Finance committee for volunteer.
Okay, so,
Is this a finance committee right here?
yeah.
I don't read numbers, we've been over this.
Oh my gosh.
You did a great job last
We
time.
have that.
Okay, so the following payments were, we're just looking for board approval for the following payments. Accounts payable, $2,028,756.52. Payroll checks, $62,096.59. Payroll other disbursements, $2,447,519.70. And payroll deductions, $745,755.19, for a total of $5,284,128.
There's one for 68,000, is that,
62,000
yeah,
payroll
what was
checks.
that specifically?
Okay.
What is it for?
Payroll checks.
Payroll
Those are
tax?
just people who receive an actual paper check for
Oh,
payroll.
okay, 'cause I was, when
Yeah.
they said that, I'm thinking, a lot of people didn't get paid here.
That's a light payroll, yes, yes.
Actually get a check, is that an option we provide?
It is, we strongly recommend that they get direct deposit, but we don't require that.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Rennick's the first,
A second.
Devin's the second. Any discussion? Right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Right, motion carries 7-0. Then we have the tractor.
Laura, do you want me to share, are you sharing things from your,
I can,
are you in the meeting?
I am. I wasn't sure if Peter wanted to do this or.
Sure.
Okay.
So, we had a facilities meeting last night. The facility, Jason, the director, brought to us some bids for a tractor replacement, which was scheduled. We will be asking for, let me see if I get this right here.
It's on the screen now also, Peter, just
Okay.
be helpful.
Yep, so you can see the total there, $36,591.59, and that's for the Kubota tractor. It's got the factory cab with the radio and the heat. It's a 2610. It's a 26 horsepower tractor. If you look down below, it's a 2000 John Deere 440. That would be the trade that we're trading in. They're offering us $4,500 for that. But the big discount is the municipal discount, just above that in red. They're giving us $9,749.08 off the top of the price, so that brings us down to the total, and then obviously we've got freight and dealer prep and installation, brings us to that $36,591.59. And you can see we did get another bid from Fournier Farm Equipment on a Massey Ferguson. It's quite a bit bigger tractor. It's a 35 horse tractor. A little bit more money, but in the end, it wasn't the tractor that was right for the situation that they're using it for. They felt that the Kubota better met their needs. So the facilities committee did recommend that we approve this purchase of the Kubota tractor with the trade of the current John Deere 4400.
So I'll just add that typically, historically, we lease tractors or equipment like this. We have not done that since ESSER funding has become available. We've repurposed ESSER funding and then made funds available to purchase tractors outright. So there's a $40,000 or $41,000 line item in the budget for equipment leases under facilities that will cover this purchase, and we do not currently have any leases. After this purchase, in the ESSER fund expiration, we will probably return to leasing equipment like this. Makes the payments a little easier to handle.
Rita, before we act on this, which you said was unanimously supported by our committee, we did look at an option. I didn't know, Laura, if you had any updated information.
I didn't hear back, but I did send an email to MLC asking them for the shortest term and obviously lowest rate with an option for prepayment, but I haven't heard back yet. I apologize.
So this probably concludes the immediate tractor issue purchase, but I think if all the stars lined up and we found some money, you might be back. There was another tractor that we considered as part of a package, but this is the one that we definitely supported. The other we're waiting on what can we do and what kind of rates can we get. So thank you. I'll make a motion we approve this amount as indicated in Peter's report.
Right. Tom's the first, and Rennick's the second. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And then Laura's going to give us a budget timeline overview.
So this is, I've tried to abbreviate this from last year to include more the points that are important to the board and not necessarily all of the things that the business office does. So hopefully that makes it a little easier to digest. But you'll note in this document basically a play-by-play of the budget development as it pertains to the board and the administration, as well as the information we receive from the AOE as far as it will be ADM numbers and revenues and things like that. So it also will outline everything in bold is board meetings when a draft will be brought to the board, what that draft will include. For instance, draft 1 here on the 14th of November will include primarily staffs and benefits, and then the next one down on November 28th would include major contractual obligation adjustments, things like transportation and copier agreements and things like that. So it really walks you through pretty comprehensively the development of the budget. I don't know if there are specific questions, if people have had time to look at it, but I think it's a great way to sort of walk the board through as we develop the budget. It also will outline important times when Julie and I will meet with either building principals or other administration and talk about needs. Also identifies times that we will solicit department budgets from different departments, and those will be reviewed by administration. So I think it's a good reflection of the timeline and the effort that goes in the budget development.
Laura, can I ask, last year I thought that Google slide presentation that you used to put all of the updates in one single place, and it sort of served as a scrolling document for the board and community. Are we gonna be doing that again?
I hope so, if the board thought that was a useful tool. I thought it was useful to have everything in one place, so you could identify the changes from one version to the next, but if it's really board's directed, if that was helpful.
And Laura and I have been talking about next time, I think we will do a little Act 127 mini presentation.
I updated it.
Yeah, yeah. Even though it's not a huge impact to our school, I think the language will be changing. So as we're talking to taxpayers, I think it's important to share an overview.
I also think it'll be important because I think the news, obviously, and people in the community will be hearing that there's some school districts in the state that will be negatively impacted from a tax rate perspective, and maybe having to make adjustments there, and we are not one of those schools, so I think it'll be important that people don't, become concerned about something that is not a problem right now for MVSD.
So we came out on the positive side of the ledger.
Yes,
Slightly, it's
Slightly.
not significant.
just sort of middle of the fold, right? So a
And that's
little
what we kind
above.
of figured as we
Yes.
worked through it the last 4 or 5 years. And things like that. The date that we have to finalize a budget is,
Yes, let's see. I have to warn the ballot and have it posted by February 2nd.
so I asked the question.
So I'm asking for the board to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the January 23rd is your board meeting right now, that would be the one, yep.
So this is an opening for Toby to get the word out if he's not running for the board.
Yeah, I have no intention of going for another 3 years, so.
So the 23rd of January must be a date between then and February. Anyone who wants to have their name on the ballot has to get their petition.
Yes, it's right here, it's January 29th this year.
And does the petition come from here from the superintendent's office?
It comes
Yes.
from our office,
Not the
Was
town
it-
clerk's,
I think-
no, but.
No, we have it.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Nolan.
I know there's been confusion at times because for years you went to town clerk's office, but now it's out of the superintendent's office. But, I was hoping Toby would change his mind, but at the same time, we haven't had a lot of people wanting to be on the board in recent years. So it'd be, as soon as we can get the word out, or how often we can get it out, is good. I think there's a rule if nobody runs you.
Yeah,
Unless we all write you in.
yeah.
So-
Only takes 30.
Last year, I think we discussed this, so like the 23rd is kind of like, because it's our last meeting before the deadline, is kind of like when we have to have that approved. I thought we talked last year, not having a final budget, but at least having the things that we'd like to see in the budget presented in maybe the December timeframe, so we could have a public meeting.
So you could have real public input.
Right, because what I think sometimes the public finds frustrating is when we have our open meeting before we approve the budget, and they have ideas, but it's really too late in the time to do anything about it. So I don't know if that is something that we would like to entertain, is doing something, maybe a public forum in December with these are things on our budget that we're, planning to budget for, and this is, our estimate at this time, just to get public input on if maybe like to see something different, or
So we have it scheduled for January 10th, which is 2 weeks out. Is that not enough time, do you think?
I don't think it has been in the past, that's my concern.
Yeah, there's no board meeting between that point and the final vote for us to really discuss those ideas and see what we wanna kick in. If it could just get on the other side of that January 9th meeting, I think that would
The trick
be
is
pretty good.
the week
Yeah.
previous to that
Holiday.
is a holiday time, and you don't see that. That's where the pressure is.
The world would come to an end if we had a special meeting between the 9th and, I think when I came on this board many years ago, we were having board meetings twice a month, in every school, or some were 2 or 3.
Certainly felt that way. Yes.
And that was, and I'm glad now that we don't, but I think if we really felt that something could come out of a January 9th meeting, it would be the end of the world. We had a special meeting just to take it, see how we can adjust that.
So your suggestion, Dawn, just so I can understand what I'm hearing, you suggest
Have it on the 9th.
is have it on, the 9th or the 10th, and then if we feel like we need a special meeting before the 23rd.
Yeah, the next week. 3 weeks in a row, as I say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that every month, but as I say, it wasn't too many years ago. We were
Swap these two
having a lot of meetings in each town.
Yeah, so we'll look at that and come up with
Thank you, Peter,
ideas.
for bringing that up, because even though it's not well attended, I
Right.
did hear people comment in Swanton. It was nice that they had the option to say something before
Right.
it was printed, so. It takes these things a while to catch traction, but it's good.
Devin, you were saying you'd like to see the January 10th meeting before when?
Well, Don gave a alternative to that. I think just trying to get one more meeting after the community input forum, so you could
Right.
either move the forum from the 10th to the 5th, which Julie mentioned was the holiday
Yeah.
weekend challenge, or as Don said, get another meeting slotted in there for the
Before the 23rd.
Yeah,
Oh,
for like the
gotcha.
16th
I
or
see.
something.
Okay.
If we feel we need it. If we get input that night, we may be able to deal with it then. I don't think we're gonna be overrunning the people, but if we had 2 or 3 suggestions, we might take it that night. But if it needed more dialogue or research, we could come back. We could come back for an hour and get a lot done, if we needed it.
Yep.
Yeah, it is true that at that time of the year, those changes impact so many different, it's just saying, let's add money here, Laura. It's not like she can do it in real time in the meeting all the time. Sometimes she can. The spreadsheets are good. But yeah, just having that opportunity to act on input or make changes, I think that's a good idea. And we don't have negotiations this winter, so, it's not one of those years where we're competing for time. It should be pretty easy.
Going back to what I kind of chided Toby on, but who else is up for, Highgate has 2 people this year?
I'm up.
Two
Yeah, they will
vacancies?
too, but-
Jen is up, and then Kelly will be running for her the rest of her term.
And who's up?
Has she indicated she is running for the rest of her term?
I haven't confirmed it, but she knows about it.
I'm up in Franklin. I do not intend to run again, so we'll need to get a new Franklin representative as well.
If anyone else has feedback, please email me, or, this is a living document and it's yours, so just let me know.
I do like the timeline. I distinctly remember doing it last year. I thought it worked well. We had a good budget process last year, I thought, so.
Thank you very much, Laura. Next agenda item is professional hires.
With one professional hire, we are hiring Christina Carreno, who is an ELL teacher. We have been without our own ELL teacher for, feels like a couple of years. And we have been using a consultant and some tutors and doing what we can. But we're very excited to have Christina join us. She's been working in Hunt with students, with a large caseload of students in a single school. So she's actually pretty excited to be doing the work in multiple schools and working with children with English language learning needs across the district, and maybe getting to know them and their families a little more deeply.
What did you say the position was?
English language learning teacher, ELL teacher.
Go ahead. Bob.
No, go ahead, I don't have the name. Go ahead.
I move the superintendent's recommended hires. Hire.
Don's the first,
I'll second it.
Toby's the second. If there's any discussion, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Somebody go take it from somebody who should.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Julie or Dan, where are we with athletic trainers? Still looking?
Still looking, had one applicant, I had Bonnie re-up the ad about a little over a week and a half ago. Had one applicant who is not qualified for the position, so we're still looking.
Joanne, board retreat update.
So unless anyone has anything to update or send an email on, I think we're pretty consistent with what we had said a couple weeks ago. The next time we all see each other will be Saturday, the 21st at 9 at the Highgate Library. And it'll just be open to focus, trying to stick to the topics of community engagement plan, and maybe we'll break that down to the committees. Also, we had talked about at the retreat how possibly committees could also help involve the communities. Superintendent evaluation and the elementary principal reports, just touch on those if time permits. So 3 hours, 9 until noon, Highgate Library.
Highgate School.
School library.
Highgate School Library, yes.
I can see you over at the school and some of us all tired.
Just walk on over.
Maybe we should add communication on.
We can do that. Clear communication.
Is Peter still on your committee?
Which one?
The organizing the retreat?
I didn't have much to do with it.
No, I think I just kind of took this one.
Okay.
Didn't have much to do with it.
Excellent, thank you, Joanne. And then we got the committee updates, facilities committee.
Yes, so I want to thank Laura for helping me organize these notes from last night's meeting. So we had a really good meeting last night. I know some of you were attending online. So let me get to my notes that I wanted to look at. So just to let you know, we invited the site supervisors to our facilities meeting, just because Jason is overseeing Swanton, MVU, and Highgate now, and Steve was there from Franklin. So we hear a lot of great things going on, so we wanted to get to at least meet the site supervisors. The MVU site supervisor wasn't available last night, but we did get to meet Kevin Moss from Highgate as the site supervisor. He's been there for about 4 months, so but he seems like a really sharp, really good administrator for Highgate for the facilities. So we're glad to meet him and have him on board. And then Floyd Knapp is the Swanton site supervisor. I think he's been there for quite a while. He became the site supervisor, I think, when Jason got promoted, right?
He was at MVU.
Oh, he was at MVU,
was at MVU.
okay, and then he went to Swan, okay. But yes, I was very glad to hear from both those gentlemen and the good work that they're doing with facilities, so that was kind of nice. And we had pizza too, so that was fun. So some of the things that were discussed last night, so the MVU sign, I know that was in the MVU report as well. So everybody saw that that's starting to happen. So the stonework going on around the sign. It looks like it's going to take about 3 weeks to complete that, and that's Chevalier Stonework that is putting that together. So we're pretty excited about that. I think it's going to really look nice, look sharp when we get done with that project. Another project, cameras for Highgate. So this is something we've been looking at. We have the money budgeted for this whole project for this year, but unfortunately we've had a lot of vandalism happening at the Highgate Elementary School. Sad to see that. And as recently as this past weekend. So Jason got a package together, got a bid, and to look at purchasing 5 outdoor cameras for the Highgate School. And also, obviously, we need the related software and server, which is the big cost of the project. But those 5 cameras will give us a complete view of the total circumference around the school. So we'll be able to see what's going on. I know they have that in Swanton, at the Swanton School, and that has helped tremendously with at least the vandalism end of it. So I think once people realize that the school is monitored, that should help. So the vendor is Omega. The cost for those 5 cameras and the software and server is $35,140. Laura is going to apply for a VisBit safety grant. That should be in the amount of $7,500, and there's also VisBit safety grant funds left over from last year in the amount of $4,091. So we'll only have to spend $23,549 to get this project with the 5 outdoor cameras installed. We'll budget following year to add cameras to the inside. I think it's 24 cameras we're looking at for the inside. Is it that many? But anyway, so that will at least get us started, and the facilities committee was certainly supportive of that project, and to see that get done. We talked about the tractor, and Don brought up there's another larger tractor that isn't getting the use like it should, because it doesn't. It's kind of like a tweener. It's not. Doesn't do what we need it to do, and it's putting more pressure on the other equipment. So they were looking. It wasn't budgeted for this year. They were looking to replace that as well. We didn't think we quite had the finances to support that yet. That's why we asked Laura if she could look at what it would cost to lease, and maybe see later this year if there's any flexibility in our budget, or we'll look at doing that next year. So just a heads up on that. Air purifier filters. So we purchased with ESSER funds through the pandemic filtering systems, and these filters are large, and we have the expense of having to replace the cells every 2 years, and that's at a cost of $60,000. And the filters, which we replace twice a year, and that's an annual cost of $50,000 a year. So we've been covering that with ESSER funds, but we're looking forward how we want to maybe try to phase out of that, with the thinking that we are putting investments in our schools right now. We've done it in Highgate, we're doing it in Franklin. I know we want to do it in Swanton to update our HVAC equipment so we have cleaner air. So we're hoping that we won't have to keep having to have these expenses for these air purifiers.
Were we planning to purchase some at this point in time? So then we have some available.
Before ESSER expires, yeah, before September
ESSER
next year,
expires,
yeah.
so we'll have a cycle of need to work through what we want to do.
PCB testing continues, so Highgate has been tested and they were negative, so that's good news there. Swanton has also recently been tested this week. We're still awaiting results on that. MVU is next up to be tested. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. And then Franklin, because of the age of the school, that's not needed, so we don't have to worry about that. We talked about the Vermont Green Schools Stormwater Phase 2. So, I don't know, I think I'm gonna let you discuss that more, Laura, because you're more up to date on that.
Sure, so in phase 1, it was design funding for Swanton and MVU. Highgate is all set, that project has been completed. Franklin does not meet the 3 acre requirement. So phase 2 is now being launched. There's a 90-10 split for funding, so the grant would fund 90% and the school district would be responsible for 10% of the actual implementation of the design, so the project to meet the requirements of the 3 acre stormwater rule. So we are just beginning that process. Jason and I are attending workshops and trainings. We don't know exactly how that's going to play out. This has been a 3-year process so far, so I'm not holding my breath that it's going to continue quickly, but we're just keeping our eye on when that 10% will be necessary from a budget perspective, but it is a requirement of the law, so moving forward is really not an option, and we're glad that MVSD is in line to get funding to support 90% of it.
Thank you. So the MVU wood chip boiler share grant is a 90-10 funding, so we'd only have to cover 10% of that. And that's to update the control system for the wood chip boiler, and that is our backup heating system. So we are applying for that. The application was approved. The comprehensive application is due the end of October. Jason and Laura are working with the current wood chip servicer to complete and submit that. It's looking like it'll be a cost to MVSD of less than $5,000, so we certainly supported that. It's important to make sure that our backup system is working and working efficiently. You never know in this climate what things can happen, so it's certainly nice to have that as a backup. Okay, the Town of Swan MVU land swap. I don't know if you're gonna put up.
Are you gonna pull that
I
up?
sent you a chat. Adobe keeps crashing for me. I think it's an MVU, something with a network. I don't know, so I sent it to you in an email.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I will get in there. So Laura, you explained how you and I met with the select board chair.
Yes, so Julie and I met with Earl Fournier, the select board chair, this week. He invited us over, had a wonderful meeting to address the issue of the
5 acres of interfaith council, previously owned by the Interfaith Council, but is currently owned by the town of Swanton, plot of land. Sorry, I just have to open my email.
And the fact that MVU's driveway or access road to frontage road, so not the main driveway, but the other one, for whatever reason, runs on property that does not belong to the school district. And trying to rectify that situation, the town has graciously, I have to rotate it, offered to swap.
I can't, because
I can't open it with Adobe either.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
So we'll just make it big.
Make sure you tilt this right.
I don't think we can. Adobe's not working right for
Can't
whatever
do it right
reason.
now?
Yeah.
Right, but that, is it the bottom?
The bottom,
The
yep.
bottom road that you see here,
Well, that's,
okay? This is the lot, the piece that the town of Swanton owns. And this is our access road. So all of this part here is on town land instead of MVU land. And this portion right here is a neighboring landowner. And then this part down here is fine. is on our property. So they're talking about giving us land from this lot right around here. They have other things they're trying to do with a neighbor because they have their own expansion needs. So they right this time, they don't want to give it all to us, but they are asking us the portion that we would ask for. They were thinking a space like this right here. But they did ask us about these trails. So we are going to talk to them about if it's possible, would the select board give us some, a boundary adjustment here that would allow us to continue to use the trail. That may not be part of their plan right now, but they are thinking that this is a conversation that could happen in stages, depending on what their needs are. But it was very positive. They said it's very unanimous. They want to help the school district and ensure that we have our road on our property and to the greatest extent possible. We still have to do something here with this little stretch. We may need to move the road a little bit. We'll have to see.
You said it at the beginning it was a swamp.
No, not for us. They're just giving it to us.
Okay.
The swamp they're doing with the neighbor.
I don't, and again,
It's different.
Okay.
That's
a
their-
different.
Has nothing to do with us.
nothing to do with us. Don't know what's going to actually
When I
happen.
first heard the trail, but it's a cross-country running, cross-country.
Yeah,
Right.
I was, that's what
You knew that.
I just knew that because I just was speaking to someone who volunteers his time very graciously for many years and we host the district or something, and he really misses not being able to use that trail.
I think that's a different trail.
There's a different,
no,
not the one that
no,
was
not
on the
that
other
one,
property.
that one.
That property.
That,
Well, that
and,
one's not being used.
No, we
Currently?
stopped using that.
Okay.
Okay.
so I don't know why, I would think that
And the
town,
other one.
I would think the town of Swanton would allow us if we asked. It's kind of an aside, but I
Right.
do think, and it's just one sport and,
Yeah.
but it would very help, my impression is because cross-country, you don't really wanna run on an open, cross-country is
No,
cross-country.
you wanna be in the
You want
woods,
woods,
yes.
you want hills, you want, so it's a much missed component of the trail system that they have set up for that. So it kind of dovetails with what you were saying, if maybe the grander scheme, we could get it if it goes in phases, but I do think that there's interest for some stakeholders of the school to have, and if we can't get it all ceded to us or whatever, just the use of it. I don't know
Right,
why.
the right of way or
I know there's
something.
insurance issues, but I don't understand why that wouldn't, I mean, the town has insurance, it's recreation, even if the school uses it. So,
I think the issue is the part that goes past the town property, though. You see how the dotted line crosses?
Yes, right.
That's a
That's-
landowner.
right,
That's a
yeah.
private landowner?
Yeah, that's probably, that probably is, but I don't know if the
Yeah.
person who does the trail could work around that to keep it.
That's
in
what we
town.
were wondering too
Yeah.
last night, that
Yeah.
if we could come in above it.
Come in this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
Jason had mentioned there's some drop-offs we'd have to avoid, but it probably could be done.
Yeah,
The other issue that,
it'd make it more challenging, you said.
yeah, we want it to be
Tough
one of the challenges though is we don't want kids using this as a cut through. And with it open, that I know historically had been a bit of a problem.
So you're saying it's fenced off, we can't access it?
There's a gate that's up on the, yes, right up there. There's a gate that's been put up right there. Now, you can easily walk around the gate, but there is a gate that's been put up through there to help kind of block off that traffic. A lot of people don't know that that doesn't belong to us, and because MVU had
Right.
used it for so many years.
And you can still have the gate even if we owned it.
Correct.
So, I mean, the facilities committee would like to recommend at least to try to see if we can get enough property to get that trail included. We looked at two scenarios, just minimum along the road, so we have ownership of the road, but ideally, we'd certainly like to be able to have that trail included.
This is the type of thing that you do in stages. I mean, I'm really pleased that Earl, looks like what, reached out to the school district. But they have some other irons in the fire, and if we get a piece of it, once they do their other business, maybe we'll get another piece of it.
That, I think, is the hope, but, can't speak for another municipality, and, but I do know that they were very welcoming and very just much wanting to do what they felt was the right thing for our community. And I was just so, it was very positive.
And the road certainly seems like the key piece here, so
Yes.
it's gracious of them to offer that up.
So they have just asked that move fairly quickly, that we get back to them fairly quickly. There will be some minimal engineering costs. They're working with a current engineer, it's probably a civil engineering company right now. We would probably inherit whatever cost it was to do the subdivision work of this, but that would be the only cost of the school district, and I would think it would be pretty minimal.
Yeah. So I think we have a recommendation to go back to the town.
Somebody else has told you.
Do you need a motion?
We didn't put it on the agenda,
We
but
didn't know about it in time.
But I think we certainly can have a recommendation to me to go back to the select board with our proposals, and then they can see what their response is, and then we would come to a future board meeting with something a little more firm.
Make that recommendation.
And Jason has measured out, so we know how many feet is necessary, and we can bring that with us.
Okay.
All right, we also talked about the budget coming up for FY '25 and capital needs. So I think we're gonna be looking at that in depth in our next meeting in November. So we're currently reviewing the capital improvement plan. Many projects were done this past summer. It was a really one of the bigger, I think, and certainly since I've been on the board, as far as projects this summer. So it's great that we were able to get all these things done, but there's many more needs, as you can imagine. So the one thing that we've been working on is the MVU roof. We've been doing that in phases. We've completed 2 phases, looking at the 3rd phase to budget that for next year. The good news is it looks like with the experience and understanding of what this roof is, what the projects are now, their risk is less, and we're seeing that as the pricing is starting to come down from what they originally anticipated. So there's some savings there. But there's many other things that we can certainly use that savings to make other needed improvements. So one thing that we talked about in the meeting is we have these large projects, and we're in October now. If we want to do something next summer, we already have to be there, right? And we don't have the money budgeted. It's like we have to start looking at things 2 or 3 years in advance and try to get a budget where we can include those things so that we can start getting the ball rolling. Otherwise, we're always going to be behind a year. You know what I mean? We'll have to wait until next year. It's always wait till next year. So we're trying to get the facilities budget to a place where we can start having the confidence where we can start getting these projects ready, this fall for next summer's budget. So I don't know, Laura, if you want to talk any more about budgeting before I move on.
Not necessarily. I will say, in using the roof as an example, and obviously we have the funds, earmarked for the continuing phases of the roof. John from EEI would be looking for us to sign a contract in the next 6 weeks to solidify that roof project. That would allow them the proper time to sign a contract with a subcontractor and order materials and all of that and ensure the work could happen this summer. So that's even a short timeline, you know, because we have an existing relationship with a management company, with a contractor, and they know what they're doing and they've done the first 2 phases. So anything larger than that oftentimes is 12 to 18 months. And that usually, if you don't have the 12 to 18 months going into a large-scale project, then you almost are guaranteed to have higher costs, less competition. And oftentimes design is influenced also, you know, sometimes if an HVAC design or a construction design is rushed, then you're not necessarily gonna have the best outcome. So we wanna try to get ahead of that.
The other thing with the aging population, many of your companies are having a hard time replacing their workers they've had for 20, 30 years. And so there are fewer bidders, fewer competitors, so, you know, the big companies and school projects I've worked on, and I'm sure some of you have, but you're looking about planning now for 2 years from now. What do you want to do 2 years from now? Peter, go ahead with your report. There's just one comment I want to make, but go ahead.
All right, the last thing I have, Dawn, is kind of exciting. So we've talked about the theater and the seating for a long time, and we've heard some costs of up to $500,000 for that project. So Jason has gone out and gotten a bid, and much lower than originally thought. So we're looking at $175,000, and that is going to be added to the ARP ESSER budget application. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to move forward with that project. So that's pretty exciting. And
What was that for?
the new seats in the
Auditorium
yeah.
seats, new
Oh,
seats.
that's really
in the
exciting.
theater. So
Julie worked a deal somehow, I haven't figured out.
Well, we were looking, we've made some adjustments, as you do, where you put in a budget and you don't expend it as much as you needed to, and so we were looking at amending the ARP ESSER plan and looking at this point in time, you can't have something that's a big multi-year or salaries. We were looking for things to purchase, things that we can do with that chunk of money. So I said, wonder what those theater seats would cost. How much money do we have in there to play with? And I'd make a bid for that. And I was expecting it to be a large number. And it was not a large number. We were shocked that it would, I mean, it's still a large number, but we had heard $500,000. And so this is something that we can easily use in this amendment for our ESSER. It's something that will very easily qualify with a strategy. And it will be a very visible use of those funds. And every time I sit there and there's 3 less chairs than there were last time because they had to be cut off because they're breaking from 1971.
We don't know if it would be the same chairs or
Nope, better chairs.
better chairs.
better.
Somebody's seen us.
Yeah, Jason has.
When Julie and
has
Jason brought up, my original reaction was, all wooden folding chairs.
Don had us bringing in lawn chairs.
What's the time frame with that?
Well, we need approval first.
Yeah,
We
but
need approval, but it all would be done before, it has to be done before September of '24.
We probably can do it much
So
sooner
next
than
school
that.
Yeah, we'll have them for next school year, for sure.
Oh, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really.
We also included a new display system for the theater. So a projection system, I should say. So with the
Yeah.
giant screen that comes down, we would have a proper display system.
I'm surprised Mr. Garso didn't bring that up, because he's our theater person too, isn't he?
I don't know that have we told him?
I think
No.
Jason talked to him, I thought.
Talk to him about the lighting
The
piece of it
projection piece,
and the
yeah.
projection piece. I'm not sure he mentioned the seat too.
Oh,
Yeah, so we'll surprise them
that's what
with
you get
that.
when you come to a board meeting.
We like that
Since you
surprise.
attended the board meeting, we're gonna.
As your
That's all I
gift.
had, Don. You had something else there?
Yeah, and probably everybody knows this, but we did spend some time getting an update on the Franklin School. It's progressing very well, and they hope by the first week of November to have it secured externally so that weather won't be a factor or a major factor in moving forward. But things have kind of fallen into place. Weather and a few other things to get them to get behind on schedule. They haven't recovered at all, but if the weather lets them get in there by the first week of November, should then really move right along on schedule.
For how far they were behind this summer because of the rain and all the bad weather, not being able to get the concrete poured. Yeah, they're doing really well. They're, like you said, they're not gonna be able to catch up, but they're gonna be able to get in by
It's just exciting that
November.
they had a number of really excellent photos showing the
Yeah.
trusses going up and the structure.
It was
how
there
they're
today, it
tying
looks great.
Old into new. In some cases, you can't prefab stuff and put it up. You have to do it on site because A plus B doesn't always come out like C. But looking good. I was very pleased where they are right now. It's gonna be-
I don't mean to backtrack, but I recommend a memorial or a monument of one of those chairs.
That's not good, Don.
Because I don't, those are
Don's got a
probably
plan.
$25?
those are probably the only ones remaining in the school. And it's probably 1970 chair.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they are.
We'll keep one.
And I wanna buy one, cause I think I want to
See, I told
memorialize
you.
one.
Don's got a whole fundraising scheme.
Show them all to me.
I think it's 500 alumni that will buy it, one chair per.
And what did I say, I
God.
the money that we would raise?
Give it to FFA, I think you said.
Is what you said?
Count it right here.
Give it to the FFA.
Oh, the
Laura's
70s.
wrinkling right.
Yeah.
No, it's very
I'm not
exciting
in
news.
charge of ordering and picking up and delivery, I can tell you that.
That's all I got to.
Thank you,
It
Peter.
was a very good meeting.
It was good.
So Megan is not here for student success.
Jolene, is it all right if I share what we did? We met last week, Tuesday, and the bulk of the meeting was really about the annual snapshot that was released in September. That annual snapshot is the sort of public data sharing tool that is required by the federal government, and it is not an entirely accurate or easy to interpret tool. You've got your academic performance data, which is pretty straightforward. And so we looked through it as a group. But as you dive into things like the investment strategies and the staffing strategies, that data is a little uneven and unclear. So we had a lot of conversations about that. At the committee's request, I spoke with trustees, the Vermont Superintendent Association trustees, to see who else is sort of concerned about the usability of this tool, because it's actually should be a very helpful tool in communicating with our communities about how well we personalize information, how well we invest in our schools and what our priorities are, but in our post-secondary outcomes. And for example, college readiness standards, some of it has to do with student performance on SATs and things like that, but some of it has to do with data that the tool should be getting from the Department of Labor or for the military, and they don't actually get any data from those entities. So it looks like nobody's employed after they leave our high school. That's not particularly helpful in communicating with the community. So I did ask trustees if they had a level of concern and if they felt it was worth advocating to the Agency of Education, as they are engaged in a process where they're going to amend their plan with the federal government to make some changes, likely in some of the areas I talked about. So they agreed that it is worth having a conversation, getting some clarity around some of the metrics that they're using. And so it was a really good discussion, and hopefully I'll have more to share at the next committee meeting. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Finance isn't listed, but they have met.
Next agenda item is the superintendent mid-year evaluation, possible finding for executive session. So what I really wanted to do is on September 18th, is I emailed everybody on the board what I had put together from everybody giving their evaluation, which is the pie charts with the percentages and everybody's input on it. So I was just gonna do like a little mini executive session if the board members would like to do so, just to see if there's any other input or any comments on that.
I'll move to, finding for executive session.
Thank you, Renick.
Is there a second?
Is there a second? You know, Joanne, we all kind of looked at you, just saying.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joanne. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We will just have board members come in for the executive session.